All right. Next presentation here is from NeurAxis, ticker symbol NRXS. That's on the NYSE American. And presenting today is Brian Carrico, company's Chief Executive Officer. We're going to try to get through the presentation about 15 minutes, leave plenty of time for questions as well at the end. So, Brian, take it away.
Thanks, Robert. As Robert said, Brian Carrico, CEO of NeurAxis, ticker symbol NRXS. For those who aren't aware, we just did an IPO in August of 2023. It's been public about 18 months, and we're excited to be here. I appreciate you coming. We're at an extremely exciting point in the company, working 10 years on an idea that's come to fruition, and we believe we're at an exciting inflection point right now, and we'll jump right into it here. So who are we? A couple points at the top you see. We're developing neuromodulation therapies for chronic and debilitating GI conditions in both pediatric and adults. As you'll see today, we have one pediatric indication. We just expanded that indication. We're expecting a second pediatric indication soon, and we're expecting our first large adult indication by the end of 2025. So we're developing and commercializing neuromodulation therapies to address chronic and debilitating conditions in children and adults. That's really the focus of who we are and what we're doing. That's our foundation. With two FDA indications in the market, one being the pediatric indication around the percutaneous electrical nerve field stimulation, which we'll talk about, and then one technology that we just licensed from the University of Michigan around constipation. I'm really going to touch very briefly on that at the end of the conversation. I want to focus really today on our flagship technology, the PENFS technology and the vagus nerve. So from a corporate standpoint, as any of you in med tech understand the importance of a Category 1 CPT code. We can have all the demand in the world, but if you don't have coding coverage and payment, there's not a lot of upside. We were fortunate enough in 2024 to submit alongside the American Academy of Pediatrics for a Category 1 CPT code. We were awarded that CPT code last fall, and we're currently expect that code to become effective January 1st of 2026. Most of you probably know that's about an 18-month process, but that Category 1 CPT code is extremely important because it brings RVUs to physicians. That's how they're measured, paid, and bonused. It brings a permanent reimbursement amount for that site of placement, and it also brings credibility to the insurance companies, especially Medicaid and large commercial payers from a recognition standpoint and prior authorization. So this is, in order to get the Category 1 CPT code, I can't emphasize enough how important that is, the amount of demand that's there, but because there's no permanent billing code, it really prevents the majority of utilization. Policy coverage, the second hurdle. We went from 4 million covered lives early last year. We're up to 51 million covered lives. We are waiting on the published academic society guidelines, which kind of coincided with the Category 1 CPT code. Those guidelines have been released in abstract form, listing us as the highest level of evidence, and we're expecting those to be published in the month of May. We're expecting those to carry us, if you've listened to our earnings calls, we're expecting those to carry us with the remaining large payers that still have left to make a decision. In 2024, we did $2.7 million in revenue, gross margins of 88%. I fully expect to have those gross margins over 90% in 2026 as we continue to gain more policy coverage. I talk a lot about this, strong data. You know, in the microcap, small cap space, healthcare companies, if you don't have great data, you are not going to receive insurance policy coverage, and therefore revenue growth will be difficult. We've built this company on we've built this company on foundation of data in order to get insurance policy coverage to grow revenues. And some of that started to hit. As you see, Q1 2024, we were down 20%. That's not revenue we lost. That's from children's hospitals that were billing the technology, receiving a no authorization required. They were not being paid and therefore had to pause their business. So we didn't necessarily lose that business, but we were up 40% Q3, 43% Q4. And I alluded in Q1 earnings call for Q4 that Q1 was on track to be as strong or better. And I stick by that. This is our pipeline. I'm just going to talk about the first few indications. The top indication, 8 to 21 years of age, functional abdominal pain in children. The next one down, we have that and we're commercialized. The next one down we'll talk about at the end. The third one down, functional dyspepsia or functional nausea. We expect that indication in the coming month or so from the FDA. Same call point, children's hospitals, pediatric gastroenterology, same insurance policy coverage, same Category 1 CPT code, same synergy, same sales force across the board. And then the fourth one down, functional abdominal pain and irritable bowel syndrome, along with functional dyspepsia in adults. We expect that FDA indication by the end of 2025. We can talk about the next three at another time. So from a foundation standpoint, we'll talk about the total addressable market and the serviceable available market on the next slide, but we have a very large serviceable available market. I may have touched on, we're first to market. The current treatments are off-label pharmaceuticals, significant side effects. So we are first to market in this space. Clear commercial pathway, Category 1 CPT code effective January 1st, major insurance coverage in place, highest grade of evidence via the guidelines, which is extremely important, about 1,000 published patients, experienced management team and board of directors, including one of our board of directors is the president of Blue Cross Blue Shield Indiana. Clear path to profitability. If you've watched, we were burning $800,000 a quarter sometime back. We're down around the $350,000-$400,000 range at this point. That continues to come down. The path to profitability is in sight. From a serviceable available market standpoint, on the bottom left of the left wheel, functional abdominal pain, $3 billion. I want to walk you through this one, and you can extrapolate those numbers out to the rest of the indications. 6 million children just in the U.S. suffer from functional abdominal pain associated with IBS. 10% of those are debilitated. That means they're not going to school, they're on a pharmaceutical, they're not playing sports, not playing with friends, etc. That's 600,000 kids. Multiply that by $5,000, which is the amount of revenue we receive per patient when approved by insurance. That's a $3 billion market. That's real revenue that's available. And I've talked publicly about the fact that there are 260 children's hospitals, and we've got 2 specific accounts that are on pace to do about $600,000 this year, and they're only treating 1 of every 5 patients they want to treat. So it tells you they're roughly $3 million accounts each, and that these patients are at the 260 children's hospitals. So from that standpoint, it's a nice synergy for the W2 sales force. And then the functional dyspepsia indication we talked about, we should have that again in the next month. Okay, so what is the market like today? First of all, we're talking about disorders of the gut-brain interaction. No FDA-approved therapies. These disorders are negatively affecting and impacting the quality of life in these children, as I mentioned. There's no data to support the use of the medication these children have been receiving for 50 years. And quite frankly, the medications are dangerous. Most have FDA black box warnings. And most families these days don't want their children starting with a pharmaceutical. So the technology itself, this is a picture of what the technology looks like today. This is placed, for example, on a Monday morning by a pediatric gastroenterologist, and it stays on for 5 days around the clock. These needles do break the skin. It's not painful. There's no anesthetic. There's no anesthesia. It's not a painful procedure. And once the patient wears this device for 5 days, the patient could take it off on a Saturday morning. They come back on Monday morning for a second treatment. They wear that device for a week, and it runs for 4 weeks. And at that point, we have tremendous data at 12 months. We have 3 studies now, I believe, including a 300-patient registry showing statistical significance at 12 months. This particular device is the one that we talked about, 88% gross margins we just reported, and we expect those to go over 90% shortly. The synergies of the treatments that I showed in the pipeline, these are all disorders of the gut-brain interaction. So we're affecting a part of the brain called the amygdala. And as you see here, we're gaining direct access to the central nervous system through cranial nerves 5, 7, 9, and 10. That includes the vagus nerve. We're stimulating and reducing the firing of the amygdala. So the amygdala is the part of the brain that's essentially overstimulated, for lack of better terms. It's overstimulated. We're reducing the firing of that amygdala, and we're essentially inducing changes in the brain pathways and the connectivity long term. And that's why we're seeing long-term results after 4 weeks of therapy. This is also a picture of our new technology. It's not much different from a functionality standpoint, but it will be a new look in 2026. This is a quick slide on the data that doesn't support the pharmacotherapy. These children are receiving TCAs, SSRIs, antidepressants, amitriptyline. You're talking about significant side effects, black box labels. The physicians are not excited to give these treatments, but it's all they've had for 40, 50, 60 years. Our first study, I'm going to touch on it research very quickly. Our first study was a double-blind placebo-controlled trial in 2017 in pediatrics. This was a slide. This is results of global symptom improvement. This is number needed to treat. So the number needed to treat to have an effect with our technology is 3. If you look at the adult drugs around IBS, like lubiprostone, linaclotide, rifaximin, the number is 6 to 14. We have very strong data, and it's why you're seeing the response from the insurance companies that you see. Long-term disability, functional disability, and long-term follow-up. We move patients from moderate disability to minimal disability. In order to do that, a half a point is significant. We move them 2 full points, so 4 boxes, if you will, from moderate disability to minimal disability. We've done the largest pediatric registry in children with DGBIs. This was about 300 patients. We took all comers. Now, unlike most trials you see that have inclusion, exclusion criteria, we had none. We took all comers, 300 patients, 7 centers, Boston Children's, Cincinnati, UAB, Riley, and others. Excellent data at 6 to 12 months. And other pieces and other parts of this, such as 61% of these patients had failed 4 or greater medications prior to taking or using IB-Stim. We did a head-to-head at Cincinnati Children's Hospital against amitriptyline and ciprofloxacin successfully. And this is the foundation of why we're so successful with the insurance companies. And this is why we saw the guidelines being published or about to be published, and what they were released in abstract form. 16 total publications. We've done 10 different types of studies at 13 leading institutions. All of this research is investigator initiated. No bias from the company, no sponsorship. Quick slide here on we have 17 insurance plans today, 51 million covered lives, and the Category 1. This is everything to the foundation and the growth of the company. Insurance policy coverage, Category 1 CPT code. The fact that the American Academy of Pediatrics submitted our Category 1 CPT code, the fact that we have the guidelines listing us as the highest level of evidence, and we're expecting a position paper from the society later this year stating that we should be used first line treatment. So when you look at these things that are happening, it's because of the data that we have published, and we're fully expecting as the insurance coverage becomes effective and the Category 1 code becomes effective, that the demand that's in place today turns into revenue. IP, this is just U.S. We've got 13 issued and 9 pending patents. We do have international IP in process. We are working on some additional countries right now, such as Canada, but the IP is around both the device and the method. Manufacturing's in the United States, medical advisory board, management team. And this is really the team that got us here. We just added Tim Hendricks, who is our new CFO. He's been here about a year. He was the global controller for GE in Germany, and then he was at Follett Corporation. And Dr. Miranda, I would point him out. He's one of the leading pediatric gastroenterologists in the country. He's been involved with the research, and he's been our chief medical officer since 2017. Board of directors, Beth Kaiser, she's the president of Blue Cross Blue Shield Indiana. Mitch Watkins has been part of 3 med tech exits from start to finish, very successful. Gil Aaron runs a fund in Toronto called Rosalind. He was also involved from the beginning, or the restart beginning, at Delcath and Myomo. Very successful runs the last 3 or 4 years at those 2 companies. And we had multiple options last year when we did a fundraising round to take capital. He wanted a board seat. We wanted him on the board for his experience. And we just recently, he became a board member on January 1st. The last thing I'll say separately from the flagship technology that we just discussed is the RED technology. We just licensed this from the University of Michigan. This is a constipation technology. We licensed this for a couple reasons. Number one, it's in the GI space, adult GI space, and it already has a Category 1 CPT code, reimbursed by Medicare, reimbursed by commercial insurance. There's a real unmet need for patients who are seeing the gastroenterologist for constipation right now before they get to anal rectal manometry. We just launched this. We do think this will provide meaningful revenue to the company and help tremendous number of patients, but this is very new, and so we'll report back in the coming quarters. One more thing. When I say the revenues of 2.7 million, we treated a little less than 0.1% of the debilitated market last year. Cap table. The stock price is $250 today, so that welcome to the way of the markets right now. I printed this yesterday or the day before. It's $250 today, but there's the symbol: shares outstanding, warrants, options, RSUs, Series B preferred that was done last year, and shares fully diluted about 15.8 million. Financial position about $2 million. As I mentioned, the cash burn is coming down, so we've got money into Q3. Again, revenues are increasing. We have not announced Q1. Would we likely have to raise some money? Yes. We fully expect to be cash flow break even and profitable sooner than later. Is that 15 minutes?
Thanks. Thanks, Brian. Just want to delve into some topics here. Let's go back to the research here. You spoke about published research and specifically as it relates to insurance coverage. You've had nice success, 51 million covered lives currently. What's the next catalyst in terms of much larger national coverage?
Yeah, so we've built a relationship. There are 5 primary decisions left. HCSC, which covered almost 20 million covered lives from Illinois through Texas. Anthem, United Healthcare, Cigna, and Aetna. That would take us at or above, around 200 million covered lives. And they're waiting on the Academic Society guidelines to be published. The abstract didn't do it for them. Their internal mandates or their internal guidelines, if you will, require published guidelines. We speak to all 5 of those pretty frequently, and we're cautiously optimistic as you can be with a payer, that the guidelines allow that policy coverage to be finalized.
Let's talk about sort of the competitive therapies, if there are any. What are you seeing out there in terms of competition of therapies for IBS, specifically in the pediatric space?
Well, in IBS, there are some pharmaceuticals like amitriptyline, albeit not helpful not ideal for children. They do help some kids. And it's easy. You can write a prescription, kid can be on amitriptyline, 8 hours later. So you're dealing with ease of use. There's no true competition. There's no other FDA indicated treatment for functional abdominal pain and IBS. And there are some off-label pharmaceuticals that work. So you're dealing with that. When you have a physician who has a child in pain and they can treat someone today, they often do it. You also have physicians who know that the data is outstanding with IB-Stim, and they need a Category 1 CPT code, so they're paid for the procedure. And number 2, they need to know that the patient will be reimbursed by insurance coverage. And that's not the case today across the country. And as I said, half the battle is the Cat 1 code, which will be effective January 1st, and half the battle is the insurance policy coverage. And we're cautiously optimistic that by January 1st, the majority of that is taken care of. So competition's a loose word, but it's about convenience.
Got it. You've made 2 very important announcements in recent months. One is the Category 1 code and the 510(k) extension. Talk about their significance and sort of what it means.
Well, yeah. So a Category 1 code right now, if a physician has to get 3,000 RVUs in a year and they would like to be doing IB-Stims for 1 day a week, that's not realistic because they won't meet their RVU threshold, so they won't be paid. They won't have a raise next year, and they certainly won't get a bonus. So they're prohibited, if you will, from doing very many IB-Stims. What they're doing is out of goodness of their heart. They know it's the right treatment. The demand, as I said, is incredible. And so the Category 1 will bring payment, if you will, to the physicians. 99% of the pediatric gastroenterologists are employees of children's hospitals. We're not talking about private pain physicians here in an ASC that are simply concerned about reimbursement. The RVUs really matter much more than a reimbursement to the physicians we have relationships with. And the expansion from 11 to 18 years of age to 8 to 21, that increased our addressable market almost double. In December, which was good. So that they were already treating those kids as often as they could, but it allows the insurance policy coverage to pick that up.
Okay. I want to dive into the numbers. Back half of 24, strong growth, over 50% in the third and fourth quarter, respectively. What's leading to that? Why are you seeing the strong numbers? And you did mention on the call that you're sort of seeing those trends continue here in Q1. So talk about that.
Yeah. It sounds good, 40%, 43% in Q1 was good. But it's really not that many patients. And the uptick was from a few accounts that received some positive insurance policy coverage. And I've joked on the calls that if, most of our insurance policy coverage has come in areas where we have accounts that are not comfortable with the Category 3 billing code. So it hasn't helped us tremendously yet. But there have been a couple of areas where we have insurance policy coverage and the accounts are okay with a Category 3 billing code. And if you're not familiar with a Category 3 billing code, they're very difficult. First of all, the insurance company denies it immediately. They deny the appeal, and you have to go to a second appeal. Number two, your coding and reimbursement team or chief revenue officer has to build what's called a charge bundle. They have to build out the device, the physician time, the facility time, the supplies. It's very time consuming. It's difficult. So the full picture needs to come together. Category 1 CPT code and the insurance policy coverage. It appears the writing's on the wall. It's coming together. The Category 1 code for sure. But yeah, we need those two to come together.
Okay. And I just want to touch on Red. You have the 510K clearance. Walk us through what revenues could be in the next 6 to 9 months now that it is commercial, and how, sort of how can that help the bottom line here as you go forward?
Well, I wish I had an answer for you. The response is significantly higher than we thought it would be, but we're doing more of a hard launch at DDW, which is Digestive Disease Week. It's the largest, it's a global GI conference in San Diego the first week of May, and we'll have a much much more feedback at that point, and I might give more detail if I have enough information that I feel comfortable giving more detail on our May 12th earnings call. Look, the feedback is positive. They're great margins for us. It's great reimbursement for the physician. It fills an unmet need for both the physician and the patient. We're cautiously optimistic this could be meaningful revenue to the bottom line.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Any questions from the audience?
So I guess pills can be started by physicians, and I'm assuming these are pediatric GI doctors who are prescribing amitriptyline. And just that these are the IB-Stim stuff, is that through pain doctors, or is that the distribution different for these kind of things?
Yeah, so good question. Distribution is direct. So we have a W-2 sales force, and we'll expand as we get the Category 1 code and additional insurance policy coverage. But the pediatric gastroenterologists also place this. So those 600,000 debilitated children I'm talking about, they're seeing pediatric gastroenterologists at the 260 children's hospitals across the country right now.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think the gold standard for this kind of stuff still probably is CBT, which you can correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously those are harder to get in terms of, it's psych people, and is that right?
You're right. In the guidelines, they also had a high level of evidence, virtually impossible to get into. Yeah. And there's, I think you're going to see research coming from Cincinnati Children's comparing PENFS to CBT. But CBT has tremendous data, yes. It's just virtually impossible to get to it. They don't have the psychiatrist correct.
And so it sounds like there may be a big tailwind for IB-Stim as an industry, and biggest loser might be pharma in this space. But what about other competitors within the IB-Stim industry? What is having a provider pick this over other competitors that are IB-Stim?
Well, I'm not aware of another technology that's competing with us in the neuromodulation space today. And I would like to think our IP between the device and the method IP is strong enough to prevent that. I'm not going to get into it here, but we've got several mechanisms behind the IP that is not just neuromodulation, but light, sound, any frequency, if you will, that would affect the central nervous system, that would treat disorders of the gut-brain interaction. We feel pretty good about the IP around those. So in order to compete, you would have to use a deep brain stimulator, and these children are not going to have surgically implanted devices for this condition.
And do you find these children are getting these prescriptions for IB-Stim at a regular kind of suburban doctor's office, or are they going to the specialized referral centers like Cleveland Clinic or Mayo?
Funny you mentioned those two. Only children's hospitals. Yes, they're not. This is not a rural pediatrician call point. These are. I don't know that we have maybe 1 or 2 rural, if you will, private pediatricians. 99% of our accounts are children's hospitals in urban areas. Yep. Great questions.
Hi. Can you just talk a little bit more about why you went from peds IB-Stim to dyspepsia and then back to adult IBS? Why not do the peds and the adults side by side and just push that through the FDA pathway together, or right after each other?
So we had to do, so normally there's an adult drug or an adult device and they do an extrapolation to pediatrics without the pediatric data. We went pediatrics first, and in order to do, we didn't have any adult data and still don't have adult data, although we're in the process of we're looking to do an RCT at Cleveland Clinic on functional dyspepsia, but we wanted to submit the functional dyspepsia and do them both at the same time. We've had conversations ongoing with the FDA, and they've got guidance now about doing what they're calling a reverse extrapolation. So from pediatrics to adults, because if it's safe for children, it's safe for adults. So we decided to package together.
For the dyspepsia, but you'll do the IB stim separate.
So I want to make sure I'm answering your questions. We're going to have dyspepsia, pediatric in the next month or so. So we'll have both those indications. And then we're going to go package deal, dyspepsia and functional abdominal pain for adults in one FDA submission. And so we expect to have both of those indications by the end of 2025 in adults. So essentially we'll have 8 through adults in IBS, FAP, and functional dyspepsia.
And but separate CPT codes.
Oh, same CPT code.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't go down that path again. If we can't use the same CPT code, we won't do it.
Exactly. Do you need to publish guidelines, and what would the timeline be on that, and who's supporting the guidelines?
For the adult side,
Yeah.
you're probably talking, in a perfect world to get blanket insurance coverage, yes. And I think realistically that's in early 2027. Yes, we're already in conversations that if we do this RCT and it's positive, that it would go in the guidelines. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Great question.
Any other questions?
Can you just talk about your thoughts about the raise at some point? Like, is there any way to, this market cap just seems so.
We are strongly considering friends and family debt to avoid any dilution at a very good interest rate. And we have not made the decision. We've got a board meeting in May. Again, the need continues to be less and less, but we are very cognizant of dilution and the share price. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.